Hey guys, how are you doing today? Welcome to this episode of Say I Do to Ease, your 21-day masterclass series to fall in love with planning your big day the simple way. I created this masterclass series because I saw far too many couples getting paralyzed by the overwhelm that wedding planning can cause, and I wanted to do something about it. So this is your straight up resource for actionable advice and mindset that will take you one step closer to planning your wedding with ease. So let's make a deal. I want you to commit to taking one action after you watch this presentation. Can you do that? Just one action. So I'm your host, Ashley McGarity of I Do Book Who. And on this episode, we have Kasey Kyprianou of Revelry and Heart. And Kasey has been featured on, get this, Bridechilla, the Big Wedding Planning Podcast, Rock and Roll Bride, Offbeat Bride, and she was even named Best Stationery Designer 2020 on Equally Wed. And let me tell you guys, well, it is so not a secret. She was named Best Stationery Designer for a good reason. She's not talking a whole lot today about stationery, you know, the invites and the menus and things like that. But let me tell you, you need to go to her website and see her work because it is stunning. It is just phenomenal. So I wanted to throw that in there because it needs to be said. So anyways, Kasey, could you tell us a bit about your story and how you got to be here?
Well, I mean, way to hype me up. I feel like I should be like fluffing my hair, like, okay. Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me on this. I'm really excited to share just some insight that I've gained over my time in the industry. I actually started in the industry almost 10 years ago, believe it or not. My first job out of undergrad was working for a private stationery store in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I, graduated with a graphic design degree, not really realizing how that could be turned into a whole different world for me. I really thought I was going to go and work for a big ad agency and do design and marketing design. And when I got this job, I was like, that sounds cool. Like I was always excited about going to parties. Obviously everybody is, and being invited to parties, as a kind of a reject middle schooler, it was kind of cool to be on the other side of things where you're making the invitations and dishing them out instead of hoping and praying that you'll get one. But it was my first job out of undergrad, and I just got to work with these amazing people and design things that I'd never even dreamt of my skills being applicable for. So I worked for them for a few years, and then when I moved, I unfortunately had to leave, but I couldn't shake this feeling of like, I still want to be part of the special moments of people's lives. I still want my work to be like where I can see the reactions, if that makes sense. And so that's why my work is very, if you do take a look at it, you'll see my work is very much provoking reactions. It's very much different. It's going against the grain. It's made to cause conversations. And that's what I love about it. So I basically just went out on my own and moved 500 miles away from my family and started my own studio doing it. And that's kind of how I fell into it. It was total accident.
That's beautiful though, evoking reactions.
Yeah, because I think so much design, especially if you're a designer, you put your work out there and you submit it to something and you never really see where it ends up. But this ends up in the hands of your client, in the hands of the most important people that it matters to. And seeing those reactions and seeing the reactions their guests get that are equally as excited as they are is the best part about the whole process.
It sounds like a phenomenal job to have. It really does. It sounds exciting.
Who doesn't want to be part of the most epic moments of people's lives, right?
Right? Oh my gosh, that's why this is an amazing industry to be in. It really is. So Kasey's talk today is being your own disco ball. I love that. Find your vibe and make your wedding unique. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Sure. So Basically, in my studio, I love to celebrate couples that are seeking ways to stand out. And I feel like a lot of people right now who are planning weddings, especially, you know, my brides who may be above 25 and are planning their wedding, are feeling like they've been to a bunch of weddings, they've been to their friends' weddings, and they really want to find a way to celebrate their own love and to make their love stand out. And so I really love working with clients to help them discover unique traits about themselves that they hadn't considered incorporating into wedding design. So when I was thinking about this topic, you know, a lot of my work is based in kind of branding. And people think that, you know, branding can kind of be a dirty word, but all branding is kind of simulating yourself in a visual design sort of way. So really like gathering all of the visual elements or gathering all the elements of you and portraying them visually. So a lot of people don't know how to embrace their personality visually. And so, especially when you're merging styles with a spouse or future spouse that might have a different style than you, or different interests, it can be tricky to sort of navigate and find a vibe that celebrates the both of you, who you are individually and who you are together. So I was hoping that we could do 3 tips today to help couples find their vibe, to celebrate their vibe, and then to embrace it, and then to just use that moving forward into just creating something that is just magical for the rest of your life. Because one awesome thing about finding your own personality and putting that into your wedding planning is that it's never going to be a trend. It's never going to be oversold. It's never going to be dated. You're not going to have the poofy bridesmaids dress regret that 80s weddings had, you know, the poofy hair, because it's always going to be something that's always been true to you and you've always loved. So even if, you know, it ends up being a trend, because at some point some things are always going to be a trend, you know, I guess you can sort of be a hipster in that regard and be like, you know, I did it before it was cool, or I did it first. So I just wanted to kind of go through a little bit with everybody on the call today, everybody in this class, and just kind of guide you through how you can find your own personality and really incorporate that into your wedding visually, and then in other traits as well that you might not have thought of. So this is exactly what I love to do with my own clients. The outcome is that you have an amazingly unique result for every couple. It's never, you know, going to be oversold. It's always going to be very special. So the first thing you want to do is find your identity. And it's like, okay, Kasey, like, what are you talking about? Like, I know who I am. But believe it or not, I have a lot of couples who come to me, not even for invitations, but because of a blog I've written on my website, that are really anxious about getting engaged. And they'll find me and they'll leave me comments and they're like, you know, I found you because I Googled, I'm terrified of getting married. And I think that that's a really normal reaction that a lot of people aren't excited to share, right? But I want to kind of tie it back to it. It really goes back to identity, and it's something that I suffered with myself. So first of all, I've struggled with anxiety my whole life, but when it came to such a big change in my life, you know, becoming a wife, really, it scared the crap out of me. So I just wanted to like reassure you that you're not crazy if you are scared after being engaged. Like, of course, you're probably a little bit excited, I would hope, but like being scared is also a very normal reaction. And so I want to remind you that this is because of the identity shift, but I don't want you to feel like you're losing your identity. Whoever you are as a person before you're married is that same person after you're married. You're just kind of adding on special features to your identity. So it's not the role you play. So it's not you as a single person versus being a spouse. It's what you love. It's what you stand for. And it's who you share your life with. So I just trust that the universe or God or whatever you believe in has brought you to this person because of who you are and not what you do for them. That's just something that I like to insert because a lot of people have come to me and it's not something that's talked about a lot. And it is really important for me to share because I hate when people feel that they're all alone in something. You're definitely not alone in that feeling. And then you don't have to give up on things just because you're married. Like, your life isn't over. I kind of like to poo-poo the idea that a wedding is the best day of your life, because if that's the best day of your life, then you're missing out on a lot of other fun stuff in life. I just feel like, you don't have to give up the things that you love because you're married. You can still do the things you love and trust that your partner fell in love with you because of these things and not in spite of these things. So, if you get married and you have this spouse and you're like, well, what if I never get to go on my girls' trips ever again? Well, you went on your girls' trips before and he was probably very supportive of you, or she was very supportive of you, and you can continue to do that. I don't think that it has to be this big shift. In fact, sometimes, a lot of times, especially even in my own marriage, like we do all these things we enjoy together. And a lot of times you have common reasons, common interests that you fell in love, and you can go ahead and do those together. So don't feel like you have to cut off any arm of your personality, because that's definitely not what we want. We want you to take it and like I'm gonna make disco ball a verb by the end of this, but disco ball it out into the universe, because you are a beautiful personality and you need to shine it all over the place. So what do you do to find your identity as a person getting married, as a bride, as a groom, and planning this wedding? The first thing you want to do is you want to tune out the noise. And this is such a hard thing to do, because as soon as you announce that you're engaged, you're going to get 1,005 opinions from everywhere, from people sending you tags on Instagram to emails to people. I had people sending magazines and like articles and all these kinds of things. And honestly, their interests are good. They're well, they have good intentions, but at the same time, you do get very overwhelmed. And I just want you to kind of ignore the quote unquote industry and revisit what you love and has what always captivated you, because that is where you find a really unique experience. So first, you're going to want to identify your values. So do you see yourself as a power woman, as a family first woman? How do you fall in that spectrum? Are you somewhere in between? Are you, a small business owner? Are you a go-getter? Are you really driven? Are you the type of person that you want to do everything yourself? These are really big things that you're going to want to identify early on in your wedding planning, so that you know how to approach things later on in your planning. You're also going to want to look at your style, and your style is going to be found in some places that you might not expect. So you can always look at your home decor as a good base of like what your style might be. You can always look in your closet and the brands that you shop and the things that the lifestyle that you want to lead as a kind of an indicator of your style. But you can also look at the stores you shop at, the movies you love. Personality quizzes are a really great thing to revisit from, maybe your teenage years, because I know I was obsessed with personality quizzes. But it's a really great time to kind of retake those and see what kind of style you want to incorporate into your wedding, but also incorporate into your family going forward. A lot of times I'll find, if you go to your Instagram Discover page, believe it or not, they're really great at mining data on you and figuring out what you are all about. I have a lot of dogs, I have a lot of travel, I have a lot of breweries. These are all things that pop up in my Discover feed, but that's a really great way to like go in there and just kind of see, are you if travel is a big thing for you, maybe you incorporate places you've been. If there's a modern, kind of feeling to your home, maybe you incorporate that into your wedding design. These are all like clues that a designer can kind of draw out of you if you share these things with them, but you can identify them for yourselves if you take a good look at them from an outside perspective. There's also Pinterest, and Pinterest is, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think it's wonderful, but it is kind of like putting your mouth on a fire hydrant, in that it is spewing so much information at you and so many things that by the time you're done browsing, you don't know what is up and what is down. And so I would encourage you to use Pinterest with caution. Maybe revisit the Pinterest board you made a long time ago for your imaginary wedding planning and see if those things still apply. But a lot of what Pinterest is going to show you is what the industry is doing right now, and it's just been very popular. So I do encourage you to curate ideas on Pinterest, but not really use that for discovering your own likes, because right now you're going to think everything's beautiful because it is, and then it may not be what aligns with you 10, 20, 30 years from now. So if you kind of use those tools to find your identity, now you're going to embrace your identity. So this is tip number 2, embrace your identity and be a disco ball. So you're going to want to find elements that radiate the energy that you love and incorporate them into traditionally stale spaces. So I'm talking about table names. There's an opportunity there to, like I said, if you love travel, make them destinations that you guys have been to. I've done ones where the couples met in undergrad and they've done different landmarks on campus that they went to. Guest books is another opportunity to spice it up and make something different. You could do anything from like signing a piece of memorabilia, maybe it's a team jersey that you both love, to something more traditional but with a fun twist. So you can maybe have a photo book, but maybe have what I call conversation cards in that you can put next to the photo strips with questions like, where do you see us in 5 years? What was your favorite part of today? So that guests aren't writing, congratulations, we love you 10,000 times. And then there's also opportunities in things like a unity ceremony. If you're very eco-conscious, you can plant a tree together and combine different soils. There's all these ways that you can really think about what things are important to you and use that to enhance the experience that your guests get that day. Now, obviously, I'm going to bring up invitations. That's where I thrive. That's where I love to be. But they're also the first impression of your wedding. And they can be a valuable tool to reference as you continue to plan. So you can always refer back to the colors used in your wedding invitations, the mood that your wedding invitation emotes, the style of maybe the typefaces can be more traditional, can be more modern. That can help nudge you in a situation in the future where you're trying to choose between a couple options. And you can create your own invitations. You can create them with a designer, but once you've created them and you love them, you can know that you've done the research ahead of time and can dig into there to find what fits you and what fits your aesthetic. So,
Love that. Can I throw a comment in there real quick?
Absolutely, yeah.
Back on tip 1, what you said about Pinterest.
Yes.
I want to amplify that times about 10 million thousands. Because Pinterest is so glorified in the wedding industry as the place you go for inspiration and the place you go to put together your mood board and your design board. And it's not pointed out that you will only get, for the most part, what's popular in the industry as your inspiration, and you won't find unique to you inspiration on there.
Right.
And that is gold advice. What was that?
It is. And I think that a lot of people like just automatically associate Pinterest with wedding planning. And I don't know, it's like, it's just so much information. It's a really terrible place to start because it's like throwing somebody into like a rave and being like, okay, pick your favorite song. And you're like, okay, but this song is 50 songs mashed into one song. So it's just kind of like really sensory overload. And you really just need to go in there more with like a targeted approach rather than just like, okay, let's see what the algorithm's going to spit at me.
Yeah, that is gold. Thank you for that.
Of course. So basically, I'm always telling people that they just want to think outside of the box. So really using like these tools like Pinterest in ways that you hadn't thought of using them before. So that's really the best way to be unique and different from the quote unquote is expected is to personalize everything. And that doesn't mean just slapping your name or your monogram or initials on things, but approaching it from a way that really feels like you. So if you think about some other situations where you can personalize your reception, for instance, signature drinks. A lot of people are coming up with signature drink names. Maybe you name it after your dog that you guys share, or maybe you name it out on the street that you bought your first home together. These are kind of ways using illustrations from your favorite books. If you guys are big, book fans, movies, there's all these things where you guys might share something together. Use that. Also, really great opportunity to throw your future spouse a bone and say, hey, you know what? We can name all of our tables after Marvel characters because you know what? I'm going to let you have your thing. And I bet you your future spouse will love you and appreciate you for that so much. And in the grand scheme of things, people will think it's a cutesy thing and then, it'll be gone. And it's nice to compromise. Wedding is about compromise. And then, use your favorite Disney movie in instrumental as an overture to your cocktail hour. For all my Disney nerds out there, play your parents' wedding song before your ceremony begins. That's a really special way that's a more traditional thing on the surface, but you know that it means so much to you emotionally, and nobody else might know that, but it makes it special. And when you're watching your wedding video later, if you decide to do a wedding video, you'll pick up on little things like that, and you'll just have this moment of like, oh, that was cute, I'm glad we did that. So I know that I'm spitting a lot of information at you, and you probably have 1,000 ideas. I don't know that I'm acting any better than Pinterest right now at this point, except that I'm just yelling at you, motivating you. But, I really do have a method to this madness. So I do have a little activity that I'd like to do, if that's okay, with you, Ashley, if you'd like to, or we can do it just out to the class. Okay, she's giving me a thumbs up. That means she'd like to do it. Okay, cool. So the first question, it's going to be based off of this idea of, okay, you are thinking of the best wedding you've ever been to, or you're dreaming of a dream event. So what is your favorite part of this wedding?
Oh, favorite part might be...
You know what? You don't have to tell me. I'll keep it a secret.
Oh.
Okay, just think about it. Favorite part. I don't want to ruin, and I don't want to influence anybody, so you think of your favorite part, and then I'll ask you at the end.
Okay.
All right, so you're thinking about your favorite part. I feel like I'm doing a magic trick right now. You're thinking about your favorite part in your head. I don't know the answer. Pick one word that describes how this wedding is making you feel. So if you could pick up an emotion from that day, what is one word that would sum up that emotion?
Oh.
And you don't have to tell me, just think about it.
Okay. I got it.
Okay. I really feel like I'm going to pull out the Ace of Spades. Okay. What made...
That's my word. How did you get it?
I get the golden buzzer. Okay. What made a lasting impact on you as a guest? What really made you feel like, oh, wow, this really stood out to me. This made me feel really included. This made me feel loved. One little detail maybe that just made you feel something that you hadn't really felt at another wedding before. Okay.
Wait. See, what stood out isn't something that would make me feel included.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So tell me what you're thinking then.
Well, what stands out to me is big floral displays.
Okay.
But that's not like a guest experience thing where it's like a way that it makes them feel included. I'm a very visual, aesthetically pleased person.
Okay.
And so it touches me where I tend to be touched the most.
Okay. Well, I would challenge that, because maybe what is a word that would sum up what big floral installations make you feel?
I said aesthetically pleased.
Okay. Anything different? Anything deeper, like emotionally?
Delighted.
Okay, yeah. So more of like a big, impactful, like you said, very visual, very in your face sort of display.
Very
right?
delighted. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess what makes an impact on you then as a guest would just be very visually striking atmosphere. And it'd be big floral displays are very, I guess, very much a part of that, which is funny because in the next part of the question, I say, what you remember and what made an impact on you and maybe how that impact made you feel. That's what you should be incorporating into your own wedding. And then I actually gave the example. If you said you love the flowers, did you ask what they were? Did you portion out a good budget for your own flowers? So this is something that's part of your own design identity. For you, it's very visually striking work. And you will never grow out of that. I'm sure that throughout your life, you've experienced things that have really been maybe overwhelming to some people and be like, wow, this is really awesome.
Well, before our call started, I mentioned I'm obsessed with purple, as you can see in this here. And you're right. That is a long-lasting trait for me, that visual obsession. Yeah.
Sweet. I picked the right card.
You got the Ace of Spades.
Awesome. So, I mean, this is part part of your design identity, Ashley. You know, you're never going to grow tired of it. I hope you never, ever lose your love of purple. It'll never be oversold, and it's part of you. You know, that's a really a striking part of your identity. All right, so tip number 3, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so tip number 3 is celebrate this part of you. Use it to identify you as a couple, use it to identify you as a family moving forward. This is the best part, because what you've really invested all of this self-reflection can be used for the rest of your life. So you'll be able to easily identify what works for your design style in your home going forward. You have a lot of purple home decor. Even decisions, maybe like parenting techniques, should you decide to start a family, or holiday gifts for your family, will become easier because you've identified what aligns with your values. I know now that if I ever need to buy you anything, it will be a purple flower. You made it easy. And this is a really good opportunity too to say, get an address stamp, which is part of your identity. This is something that I always gift my couples, and I've used myself over the years. It makes thank you cards really easy, but also holiday cards, and a way to make bills feel more fun. And I talk about this with design and identity, because if you use the fonts and design inspiration you've used in your invitations for your thank you cards, and then for stuff less fun later on, it'll kind of remind you back to that like really awesome moment in your life, and you can kind of use that in a very functional way, but in an emotional way.
I adore that.
So when you're writing after utility bill, you're like, oh, those beautiful flowers, remember?
Yes, take the visuals from your wedding, from the invitation, and reuse it on stationery for other events for the rest of your life, and it's a nice reminder over and over. Oh my gosh, I'm just dying over here with excitement right now. Like, that is the happiest thing I have heard all day.
Because it's not, people say that it's the most wonderful day of your life to slow down, to take a breath, enjoy the moment. But the reality is that it is 24 hours, and some of that is spent sleeping. So you want to extend that opportunity as much as possible and remember everything that you can about that day. That's why people, love to document it in photos and videos, etc., because all of that, it goes by so quickly. You want to be able to kind of, embrace it as much as possible. But yeah, in terms of using design for the rest of it, you've done all of that research. You've maybe hired a designer to do that work for you. Absolutely use that going forward. I have a favorite font, which is not a surprise as a designer, but I do have a favorite font, and I've used it on everything from like my resumes to our holiday cards that we do every year. When we moved, we had a moving announcement. Like, I use it all the time. So photo books that I make every year for us. So, I mean, there are things that you can kind of just continue to keep on using, and they're always going to relate back to a very lovely time in your life. And so they'll always kind of have that positive attribute to it. So I just love using that as a little pro design tip. Those are the 3 things that I really have for people that will really kind of help make your wedding and then your marriage unique. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I would be happy to help you kind of clarify and go over these things in full, like in your own personal situation. So see what your visual design is. I love to learn about people. It's truly captivating. So
I love it. Thank you for offering that. So if you were to leave listeners with one single action today, if you were to boil it down and pick out one thing to leave them with to do, what would it be?
Honestly, just go out and have fun and learn about yourself. I think it's, a lot of time is spent in this kind of blind choice between things in wedding planning. And if you take that time and just kind of focus on, maybe going back through your journal, or going back through the love letters that you guys wrote each other, you'll really find and pick up on things that are really cool to incorporate in your wedding planning, and will make those choices later on much easier. So learning about yourself as much as possible, and learn about each other, which can always be fun and cute, and especially romantic right now during quarantine.
Extra love. Yes, that's great. So you have a free gift available for our guests. Would you like to share about it?
I do. So actually it works really well with this kind of class. It is called the Wedding Aesthetic Workbook. It's a 4-page, might be 5, workbook that is a PDF download that is just full of these personality questions that really just help you identify your personal style, your future spouse's personal style, and kind of opportunities and ideas on how you can merge them together, and just kind of using the workbook to discover things about yourself by asking yourself questions that you might not have asked yourself before. So that's my free gift for your class members today. I would love, love, love for you guys to get a copy of that and start learning about yourselves.
Yes, do it, you guys. Download it right now as soon as this video is over. The link is immediately below the video. Can't miss it. It's right there, right there. So a huge thank you to Kasey Kyprianou today for breaking it down for us. Thank you so much, Kasey.
Oh, thank you. Are you kidding? This was a joy.
Awesome. Yeah, it has been fun. I agree. Do you have any final thoughts to share with us?
I want more people to embrace themselves in their wedding planning. I think that if more people did that, they'd be happier overall, and it would make much more interesting events for all of us in the wedding industry. So please don't be afraid to indulge in that maybe weird, quirky, interesting side of you, because those who love you don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. So just go for it and enjoy everything about this most wonderful time of your life. But not the most wonderful, but it is wonderful.
And I'll throw one thing on there that hasn't really been mentioned, and maybe it's super obvious to everyone watching, but it just popped in my brain, that when you're creating a wedding unique to you, a lot of times that may mean not following all the traditions of a wedding. And picking and choosing which traditions you follow, maybe tweaking some traditions. So think about that as you're thinking about, well, what does it mean when a wedding is unique to me?
Mm-hmm.
So just thought I'd throw that in there for one last little tidbit. So anyways, my final thought is to encourage you guys to remember that we made a deal at the beginning of the presentation. I wanted you to pick at least one action step that you'll commit to taking. So if you could tag us in the group and let us know which one you picked so we can cheer you on and celebrate along with you. I look forward to seeing you guys take action and seeing that this doesn't have to be so super complicated. And stay tuned. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.
Thank you.